Hi everybody, and welcome to our workshop on savings. My name is Lee. I'll be your teacher for this workshop, and I am joining all of you from the state of Minnesota. Before we get things started, let's make sure the audio is working and that you have found the question window. So if you would, go into the question window and type over where you're joining us from. So we've got, Minnesota, we've got the UK represented. So it definitely looks like things are working okay. We've got people joining us from both the US and the UK. So welcome everybody. I'm glad all of you are here for this workshop. And we end up getting asked a lot of questions about savings. A lot of times people start their budget and then they wonder, well, how does savings fit into this and how can YNAB help me with my savings? So I'm going to ask 3 questions. Right, after you hear all 3, type over and let me know which of those 3 you would answer yes to. So the first question, have you ever started saving for something but then couldn't make any progress? Second question, do you feel like you're always saving but end up needing that money for something else? And the third question, have you ever had a disagreement with a partner about what your savings money was actually for? So type over and let me know which of those 3 you would answer yes to. Yeah, and David pretty quickly gave me a yes on the first one, right? Saving for something but then can't make progress. And I know most people will answer yes to these because they represent common difficulties people have with savings. In fact, Norma says the second and the third. And occasionally I'll get somebody that has the trifecta of all 3. Because it's just a super common set of scenarios where people just have difficulty. All right, so if you've already got some questions about savings, you can either type over that question now, or if you'd rather come on live and chat with me about it, type over the words "good to talk." Right, either way, I'm going to hang on to those questions for a little while. I do want to give you some background information first. So in the end, in the final analysis, savings is about meeting your goals, and those goals are what's most important, not where your money actually physically sits, although we will talk about that also. And this requires a shift in thinking. So let's take a look at a couple of goals that I created in this budget, and let's see what those have to do with savings. So my emergency fund category. I created a goal in this category to save $1,000 by February of next year. My vacation category got a very similar goal. I want to save for that $2,000 also by February of next year. And notice that discussion didn't contain anything about where I'm going to put the money. It's all about the jobs for the money. But sometimes as you're trying to meet your goals, you might still find yourself getting stuck on the location of your money. But keep in mind that your goal is not to put the money in a particular place, rather it's to have that money do something for you. In my case, I want that money to pay for my vacation, and I want some just in case of a financial emergency. And there may be other things I save for. I might be saving to replace my computer someday, maybe to save up so I can pay for some car repairs. And where the money physically sits has absolutely nothing to do with the jobs that it can do for me. Right? And that's where that shift in thinking comes in. So let's take a look at that. And let's talk about the different roles that accounts and the budget have. Right? My accounts, those are my dollars by location. My budget is my dollars by job. Now this is really just 2 different ways for me to organize and view that exact same money. It's not like they're separate piles of money. It's the same set of money. I'm just organizing it in different ways. Right? When I look at my accounts, it's organized by where the money is located. Right? What accounts do I have? How much money do I have in each of those accounts? When I look at that budget, the organization now is by what the money is going to do for me. Right? What categories do I have? How much money is in each of those categories? Right, so let me put the web browser budget back up here for a second. I do want to point out I've added my checking account. I've already budgeted all those dollars to my categories. My to be budgeted is at 0. Then we're going to switch over to the mobile, and we're going to go ahead and add in our savings account, which I haven't done yet. Right? I just wanted to show you that I have budgeted out the checking account, and I want to show you that it's pretty easy to add accounts in the mobile app as well. So let's go to the accounts. I'll need to add an account. And I am not going to connect it to a real world bank, so I'm going to skip that step. I'm going to call this my savings account. That looks good. I'll select an account type. which is of course going to be savings. Oh, not credit card, savings. There we go. And I also need to tell the budget how much money I have in that account today, which is $1,000. So we'll tap done to get rid of the keyboard. We'll save, and I am done adding accounts. So there's my savings account with $1,000 in it. Let's go over to the budget. And in the budget, that $1,000 shows up at the top in my to be budgeted. Right? They're waiting for me to give them jobs. So now I ask myself, okay, what have I been saving for? And really, because I've created those goals, I do know. Right? I've been saving for the emergency fund and saving for the vacation. So let's go and let's assign those dollars to those jobs. So emergency fund, let's go and select that category. I can see right here that it tells me I need another $83.34 to stay on track. Well, I'm going to get a good start here. I'm going to budget $500 right now. And we'll tap done. The other category I've been saving money for is that vacation. Let's put the other $500 into that category. So we'll tap done. Now my to be budgeted is zero. All of my dollars now have jobs. And of course, all this work that I just did here on the mobile app, it does synchronize right back to my web browser. Right, let's put the web browser up. Now, it can take a minute or so for the web browser to grab the latest and greatest information. In fact, you can see it hasn't done that yet. I'm going to leave it alone. It will take care of itself. Right? It'll go grab the latest information. If I was in a hurry, I could just refresh my browser. The big point, though, is if I was not budgeting, I really wouldn't know exactly what I was saving for. I would have this big pile of money in the savings account. I wouldn't really know how much I had for each of those jobs. Right? And when those dollars don't have a purpose, it's easy for me to take them and use them for something else. And budgeting helps you to be purposeful about your savings. Right, so that's it for my prepared stuff. Any questions about dealing with savings accounts in YNAB? And again, you can either type over the question, or if you'd rather come on live and chat with me about it, you can simply type over the words "good to talk." Right, if you do that, I'll unmute you so we can chat about it. Oli is asking about investments. So we're going to treat investments in YNAB a bit differently than regular savings, because the problem with investments in a zero-based budget is the amount that you have changes. Right? It goes up, it goes down, even though you may not have added any money or taken any out. So what we recommend for that is have a category so that you can contribute to those investments. We're in favor of that. And then in your budget, treat that money as spent. Right? It's gone off to that investment. It's going to sit around for a while, hopefully make some friends for you. And then later on, those dollars are going to come back and bring those friends along with them. Norma says we had many savings accounts, but now that we have YNAB, we're considering closing some of those. I think that's an excellent idea. Reality is you really only need one. Well, actually, really, you could get by with zero, but I'm not saying you shouldn't have one. You certainly don't need a whole bunch. And if I was a betting man, I would bet that you had those different savings accounts to set money aside for different purposes. One for the emergency fund, one for the vacation, one to save up for your next car, those kinds of things. Right? It's pretty common that people do that. Well, I can let the categories do that, and I can simplify my financial life a little bit. Because the budget tells me how much I have for each of those. Right? I know how much I have for the emergency fund and for the vacation because the categories tell me. The money doesn't have to be in a separate account. In fact, let me extend that idea a little bit. I'm going to go to the savings account. What would happen if I were to transfer into my checking account the entire $1,000 balance? So now there's no money in my savings account. All the money that I have is now in my checking account. What do you think just happened on the budget? Right? Anybody, go ahead and pipe in and tell me what you think happened over on the budget when I did that. And while you're thinking about that, by the way, Norma said, yes, those multiple accounts were to save money for different purposes. Right? Budgeting by accounts. So does anybody think something changed for me over on the budget? Yeah, David, you've got it, right? Nothing happens to the total budget amount. And in fact, if I go back over to the budget, nothing happens to the individual categories either. I still have $500 in the emergency fund because I gave those dollars that job. Where they live has nothing to do with what jobs are going to do for me. Right? Same thing with my vacation. It still has the $500. I mean, imagine a business owner. If your employee moves to a different house, you don't have to give them a different job, do you? They can still be, a project manager or an accountant or an engineer or whatever they were doing for you before. Right? It doesn't matter where they live, they can do whatever jobs you've assigned them to do. Right, so let me ask you this question. How many of you are wondering how to prioritize saving for things versus paying off your debt? That's a common one. People often wonder about that because I want to save for these things, but I want to get rid of this stupid debt. And what we encourage you to do, we actually do a workshop on this also. It's called Create a Debt Paydown Plan. Let's talk strategy. So here's the strategy that we recommend. So first thing you should always budget for is your immediate obligations, right? Those monthly expenses. Things happen every single month, and that includes any minimum payments on all of your debts. Those are also immediate obligations. Now the next thing we say is now start also saving for those true expenses. Right? These things don't happen every month, but they will happen. Right? These are the things that are going to happen, although not every month. Right? Like auto maintenance, home maintenance, buying gifts, right? Replacing my computer someday. All these things are going to happen, just not on a monthly basis. Once you have all those things budgeted for, if there's still money left to be budgeted, now you're prioritizing between quality of life categories, just for fun categories, anything beyond those true expenses that you want to save for, and extra towards your debt. Now you've got to figure out what the right mix among those things is for you, but that's the thought process. Right? The thought process is, okay, I've got this much left. How do I want to divide that out amongst those categories that are left? Right? More towards debt, saving for maybe longer range things, and things that add to my quality of life and are just for fun. So Norma, I saw you typed over, yes, you're interested. Does that help? Does that strategy approach help you? Perfect. Norma says yes, excellent. Right, and the great part about this, the budget can help you pay down your debt at the same time that you're saving for some of these things. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? The budget helps you, it gives you a structure to use when you're making those decisions. All right, so were any of you, when you came into this workshop, thinking, I really don't want to add my savings account to the budget because some reason? Right? You're afraid you'll spend it on groceries, or you want to hide that money from yourself? That's another common type of question we get. People want, I don't want to add my savings account. I might spend that money buying food or going out to eat. And you might have already gotten the idea. The answer would be, well, you're not going to, because you're going to change how you make your spending decisions. You're going to look at these categories, so you won't spend the money you're saving for the emergency fund buying groceries, because it's not in the groceries category, it's in the emergency fund category. That's really the answer. And we encourage people to add those savings accounts so that they can give them those detailed jobs. Ooh, this is a great question. Norm asked, would we budget our emergency fund if it's in an envelope and it's cash? So that would depend if you're using a cash account or a cash category, right? Two different ways you can handle cash. If you're treating cash as a category, I would say no, don't budget for it. Unless you want to add more to that. You would budget to add more to that cash envelope, but you would also treat that as spent in your budget when you take it out of the bank. If that makes sense. Right? If I'm going to add $50 to my emergency fund, I would budget $50. When I take the $50 out in cash, I would tell the budget it's spent. It gets tucked away in my emergency fund envelope. I've still got the money. Norma's asking if we would include the money in our budget, though. I wouldn't, right? Because you've made this conscious decision to take it out as cash and set it aside. So it's kind of like you've spent it with the purpose of it being there in case of an emergency. Okay, so what you have in the envelope I wouldn't include. I would just include, and budget for anything you want to add to that. Okay, so pretty quiet out there. Let's talk about the next workshop coming up. And I do want to make sure I provide you a link to that workshop. So the next one is on breaking the paycheck to paycheck cycle, a favorite topic of a lot of people. All right, how do I get myself out of that paycheck to paycheck cycle? So I'm going to grab you a link for that workshop. So there you go. That link is now in the chat window for you. You can grab that anytime. And then just so you know, the next set of workshops coming up is going to start with the fundamentals. Right? Workshop called Learn the 4 Rules, which is all about the YNAB method. That'll be followed by a workshop on setting up your budget. And then there'll be a couple of workshops dealing with credit cards. So for sure, if you're going to deal with credit cards, you haven't attended the Master Credit Cards with Your Budget workshop yet, definitely encourage you to do that. And if you haven't been to Learn the 4 Rules yet, I'll encourage you to do that as well. Okay, so Norma, so for example, we had a death in the family and had the use of the cash, but we used a card to pay for the airline ticket. So would I put that in the budget or keep it separate? So now that part that you use for the airline ticket, for sure, I would include that as part of my budget because you spent it from presumably an account that's within your budget. So that you definitely should include because you spent it from an account in your budget. I would definitely do it that way. And that's a little bit different than the cash itself, right? You took some money from one of the accounts within your budget and you spent that buying the airline ticket. That's a part of your budget. Yeah, and Norma says, that helps. I'm just getting things down. Yeah, it's new, right? It's new to people. We understand that it's new, and you're just looking for the answers to how does all this stuff work? And that's why we love doing these workshops, because we can help people see how to use YNAB effectively. And I'm gonna quote Norma. Norma says, I'm such a nerd. Well, join the club. I am also one. I'm pretty obviously, I guess, a big-time budgeting nerd. I've been using YNAB since October of 2010. And I've been teaching these workshops since October of 2011. So I am definitely a big-time budget nerd. Norma says, my husband is a free spirit. So yeah, you're the one that kind of keeps the reins on things, and he's kind of the probably whatever, right? Hopefully he doesn't actively resist, but he's just not terribly interested in the budget. Oli says, it's been around that long. I knew about a competing product, but I like YNAB better. Yeah, YNAB has actually been around since I think 2009. Might even be earlier than that, maybe like 2003 or 4. Because I started in 2010, and it was already on YNAB 3, so it must have been more like 2003 or 4. So it's been around for a little while. Yeah. Norma says, my husband likes the results of the budget, but he likes me to just tell him. Don't bother me with the details. Just let me know the summary, right? So it sounds like it's working, though, for you. So that's awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up so I can get ready for this workshop on breaking the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. I do want to thank all of you for joining me here for this workshop. I appreciate you spending your time here with me. I do hope that I will see you in some of my future workshops, and I hope all of you have gotten off to a great start on this weekend. Thanks, everybody.